Good evening, Daf Yod Daled Amud Aleph Amar Abaye, approximately halfway down. Amar Abaye. Reuven shmachar seder Shimon b'achar. If Reuven sold a field to Shimon with a guarantee that if it gets taken away, he'll reimburse him. Uba ba'al chov Reuven, and sure enough, the creditor of Reuven came, v'katarif l'mineh, and tried and took the field from Shimon, saying, "Sorry, he sold you this field, but he owed money first." Dinahu halacha is Reuven can he then go to the creditor and argue to stop him from getting the field back, from collecting the field from Shimon. And the creditor can't tell Reuven, if you're not my opponent, I'm taking the field from Shimon. You owe me money, not my problem. Reuven can tell him, I am your opponent. If you take this field away that I sold to Shimon, then Shimon's going to come back to me afterward and try to take something else. So therefore, yes, you are my opponent. Or a different way of saying it, even without a guarantee, he can try to stop him. He can tell him, I don't want you to take the field away because then I don't want him to hate me. I don't want him to have a grievance against me. Taromet is like a I don't want him to hate me for it. I don't want to have any problems in the future, shidduchim problems, etc. Therefore, I can fight on his behalf. Reuven sold the field to Shimon without a guarantee. And then protesting came about the field that got sold. All right, so Shimon buys the field from Reuven, thinking everything is great. All of a sudden he hears like, who sold you that field? That's my field. How did you get that? Actually, if Shimon did not do kinyan yet, yeah, well, he can withdraw ask for refund from Reuven and not deal with the problems. But once he made a hazakah and he acquires it, he can't acquire it anymore. Once he made it a kinyan, Reuven can tell him, sorry, you basically got scammed. You bought a bag of nuts. You bought a field without any guarantees. You bought a field without seeing the documentation. I sold you something that didn't belong to me. Good luck. What's considered a hazakah on a field? When he starts walking on the field's borders, that's considered a kinyan of a hazakah because he's technically shoring up and providing security on the field. Okay. A different opinion says that, different way explaining it says that even if Reuven's sale to Shimon was with a guarantee, that Marley can still tell him, if they're just protesting, then it's not a problem because he didn't get anything taken away. Only time he could complain is if he actually gets it taken away, and then he says, show me your receipt that it got taken away from you, and then I'll refund you. Itmar, someone sold the field to his friend. Then it said, then he find out that the guy who sold it to him didn't belong to him. And then the guy comes back and says, thank you for buying my field. It's my field. Good luck. Rav Maravas says, he can go back to the seller for a refund for the field. And he can go back to the seller, to the guy, to tell him, hey, refund me for the improvements. Shmuel says, he can get a refund for the item. But he can't get a refund for the improvements. So if he put extra stuff into it, if the price went up on it because of him, he does not get refunded for it. I wanted to ask a question from Huna. What's halacha if the guy told him specifically that he'll pay him back for the improvements if he buys it? And if you buy it, I'll refund you for the thing. If it gets taken away, I'll refund you for the improvements also. What's halacha? Why did Shmuel say that you don't get refunded for the improvements? Was it because that he didn't say, because he said because he didn't tell him I'll refund him, and over here he did tell him, so maybe he should get refunded? Or perhaps Shmuel, since he doesn't have the land, it didn't belong to him, he bought the land without him owning it. Since he buys this item, he gave him money for something that didn't exist. It looks like a loan, and therefore, when he's paying him back for the loan, and then he'd be paying him back for the improvements, then it looks like a beat because he's paying him for something that didn't exist, and he's paying him extra. So therefore, you can't do it. So does it make a difference whether or not he stipulates with him ahead of time that he'll pay him back for the improvements? Amar lehu in Vilav Rafia Ravuna first said yes, then no, but he's like, I'm not really sure. Itmar, we're trying to bring a proof for an answer. Amar Rahman Mashmuel, Ma'ot Yeshlo. In our case, the guy has the sale, he can pay it back. He can pay it back for the actual principal, shivach ein lo does not pay back for the improvements. Now, even though he did tell him he'll pay him back for the improvements, he still doesn't pay back. My time, why? Since it's not his land, it's as if the purchaser got a fee for the use of the money, and therefore we don't want him to do that because then it looks like you're paying rebit. There's a question on that. Is a braita Mishnah that says that we don't collect very vague braita. Mishnah will explain it. We don't collect la'achilat perot for produce that got consumed v'leshevach hakot or improvement of land v'lemzona isha v'abanot or to feed someone's wife and daughters, which is part of his chiyuv min nechasim mishbadim from liened properties because of a takana. We don't want it's a takana. What's a takana? If let's say someone is have to pay his kids or his wife money from the ketubah or whatever it is, that he has to support them, and he's not paying it, and then we will go to lien the properties that he sold 20 years ago. People are not going to want to buy sales from anybody who's married or with kids, because who knows if 35, 40 years down the line, they're going to be able to pull that money away from him from that property, saying, oh, sorry, he has to pay this up. So therefore, because of tikkun, takana, we say we don't do that. We could use unliened properties, but not liened properties that were sold. So the Gemara says, so we see we don't take it from lien properties, but we can take it from unliened properties, free properties. The bright Mishnah said over there, you do collect, you do not collect, for improvement of land. What's the case over there? It sounds like it's a case where maybe the guy bought a land from a robber and he put improvements to it. And we still see over there that you do not that you pay him back for the improvements through freelance. True, not from the Mishnah said that not from the lien property, but you do pay from freelance against the Rav Nachman who says you don't pay at all. The Gemara says the is referring to a loan, and that's why you pay it back because it was a loan, but not stolen property. The Gemara says if it's a case of a loan, but then the first part of Mishnah says you don't pay for the consumption of produce. Why would if it's a loan, loans, people who borrow stuff, you don't eat the produce, you don't have any. If you borrow a land, for example, you don't consume the items there. It's not your business to touch it. The Gemara says Shmuel says that if the guy is a creditor, he collects the improvement of the land. He only collects the improvement, but he does not collect the produce. Ella must say because of the obviously referring to the case where the guy stole it and then sold it, and the guy who was stolen from took his land back and the produce, and therefore you pay back. Okay. Because of now from the fact that we said the first case of the Mishnah referring to where it was sold from a robber, say because of then obviously the second case also is referring to where it was sold by the robber and it was taken back. And still we see in that Mishnah that you can be paid back for improvements against Rav Nachman. Questions back on against Rav Nachman. Where it says mid area, not the same case. In the first case, we're talking about the fruits. It's talking about a case where it's stolen land and it got taken back by the owner. And in the second case, for the improvements, it's talking about a second case where it's talking about the creditor. And therefore, in the creditor, you can pay back. When it says, Bright does not say that. What does the Bright say over there? It says, what's the case of improvements? It's referring to the case where the guy stole a field from his friend. And is leaving his possession. The guy's taking it back. When does he collect it for his loss? He collects the principal from the lien properties. And for the improvements, he pays from the unliened properties. So what's the case over there? If we mention it's the same case of the Braita that the guy did not sell it yet, who's the robber collecting from? He didn't buy the land. Why is he collecting anything? Ella, obviously for a case where the field was initially stolen. He sold it to Reuven, who improved it. And therefore, the improver, the Reuven, who bought the land from the robber, had no idea he bought it from a robber. He thought he was buying it from the owner. And when it got confiscated, he wants to go to the seller and ask for the improvements back against Rabbi Nachman, who says you won't get compensated. He said, whoa, you managed to take this bright out add on it this whole concept and story that it's a story of the guy who stole it and sold it. He says, who says? Maybe it's a case of a Balchov, and therefore it's not a question against Rahman. You said that the Braita is talking about that. It's not. Maybe it's from a regular Balchov alone. And the reason why he's paying it back to loan is what Rahman would agree to. Versus Tashma, different proof. What's the case where you're paying for the consumption of produce? Someone stole a field from his friend. And then he got confiscated. When he collects compensation for the loss, he collects the principal, the main money from the lien properties. He collects for the produce, he collects from the free properties. What's the case over there? If it's referring to like the Braita says that the guy didn't sell it because I mean man gabi. Why would the robber collect compensation? He didn't lose anything. Ella, I would say referring to a case where he stole the field from Reuven, sold it to Shimon. Shimon gets it confiscated from Reuven, and now the robber, has to pay him back for the improvements that was made. And we see he will pay it back against Nachman. Beautiful question. No, different case. He stole a fruit, a pineapple field full of pineapples. He ate all the pineapples. Then he damaged the field by digging pits and ditches, and therefore the price went down. Baga nigzal the goat again, and the guy who was stolen from comes to collect the principal back. He says, so what happened to my field? He collects from leaned properties. But when he comes to collect the fruits, he collects from unleaned properties. Right? That's why, because two separate situations are going on, he collects from two different locations. But it's not a stira against Rav Nachman. What about a different answer? The story could be Shinat Luha Masikin. The guy stole it, and then he showed the goyim. When the goyim came, like extortionists, we had it, but previously, extortionists come to steal it. We had it a lot. That the goyim used to come and force people to take stuff. Like, so they'd come over to this guy. He's like, "Oh, I have a field right here. You could take that." Meanwhile, it was the field that he stole. But exactly go to kid, and he gave to the goyim this field. And then when the guy who was stolen from comes to collect the principal that he lost, he collects from the lien properties. But exactly go to Berot, when he comes to collect the produce, he collects from unlien properties. Rabba Lo Amar Ki Rabba Rav Huna, right? Rabba did not explain it according to Rabba Huna because he says that the Braita's Lashon, the wording, is the field left the robber's possession. Bedina Mashma sounds like it got taken by the owner or the confiscated by Bedin, not by like the extortionist. Not that's what he didn't like that word. That's why he didn't agree to Rav Huna's explanation. Rabba Huna, he doesn't agree with Rabba. When he says that it left his possession, sounds like it left in original state. That's why he says it got confiscated by the extortionists, because he doesn't want to explain it that it got damaged by the guy who bought it. So he's like, I'd rather have it the case where it stayed in its original form. No explanation. Rav Ashi Tani, the Braita is teaching you two separate halachot for two separate cases. Someone stole a field full of pineapples. They ate the pineapples, then he sold the field, which was then confiscated. When the buyer comes to collect his lost fruits from the robber, he collects the properties from lien properties. When he comes to collect the fruits, he collects from unlien properties. So whether you hold it Rabba or Rabba Huna, who explained that you're collecting the principal from the robber, if it's collected from the robber, that's considered a loan without a paper, right? Unrecorded loan. It's a verbal loan, basically, because there was no sale. You owe me money. So how do you collect from a lien property? The only time a loan is collected from lien property is if it's written down. And over here, if it's a stealing and you're confiscating it back, then you should be paying back from the unlien properties. How would you pay back from lien properties? Gemara says, no, it's referring to the guy was already judged in court. And after the verdict was reached, he has to give it back to him. Then Bedin told him to pay back, and then he sold it. So since Bedin already told him to pay back, therefore it's as if it's a milveh with a document, and therefore he does pay back with a with from lien properties even. If you already got the verdict in Bedin that he has to pay back the property, so then why were the fruits have to be back from unlien property? The fruits also should be with the verdict of Bedin should also be considered from the lien properties. When it says when he came to the judgment, he came to pay back the principal. He did not pay the principal. He did not get the verdict for the fruits. Umay Pascal, why would you assume that you only got the verdict for the field and not the produce? When it says standard procedure, when a guy asks for payment, he first comes for the main chunk. He first says, okay, let me take him to Betin for the land, and then afterward, I'll bring a separate court case for the produce. Stop here.